A few years ago, we would look at our cash flow every day, but we'd never read the P&L. A balance sheet we didn't even bother printing. So that was the type of business we had. And cash flow obviously is very important. We still look at that a lot, but now we're looking at the P&L and we're getting inside all of that because we understand what makes it work. So we operate in the retail real estate industry, but we've evolved into a services platform which focuses on delivering retail brand formats in property locations with more speed, more value, and most importantly, more certainty. We weren't really in control of our business. We grew and we shrunk and we grew and we shrunk, but we never scaled. And I understand the difference now.
Pre-AG, when you didn't have AG in your life, what were some of the consequences to you personally and also to maybe the people around you?
There's definitely strong feelings of burnout, exasperation. Is it worth it? When are we going to get there? When does this get to be fun? When does this get to be worthwhile in a business that wasn't optimized, that didn't have the basics set up well? I think that's the point where I really started to look for ways to sort of get past that. I read all the books, I did all the online course. I was trying to find the answer because I was desperate for it. The other thing that happened for me too, which brought the personal aspect into it, is in the midst of all of that, we had a fairly significant sort of medical, trauma in my immediate family. That changed everything. And that actually forced me to switch off immediately, which showed a couple of things. One, the quality of the group of people that we've built, they stepped up, but it also, took me out. And so those fault lines becoming cracks, when I eventually came back, it sort of became a lot easier to see what we needed to fix. And it introduced the very important element that I've really learned working with you guys and in the community, which is unless you get yourself sorted, number one, the rest of it doesn't happen. And that's probably one of the big changes, is that if I can't show up, if I can't have the ability to think, if I can't have the ability to lead because I'm worried about money, I'm worried about health, I'm tired, the gremlins are yelling at me from both shoulders, then there's no way.
But like, why? What was it that you picked up either through the community, AG community, or that helped you with that?
I'll start with the community, because I remember very clearly that event on the Gold Coast in 2019, and there was 300 people in a room. I was sort of going, how did I end up here? What am I doing here? And the thing that struck me the most was, here's a room full of other masochistic mad people who are all in business and, on different stages of the journey. And even though we'd been around and we'd gone up and down and we're still there, and we're in the 1% because we're beyond 70, all of that, it never felt like that. Because you're just living in the moment of, well, this is the challenge here and this is the challenge now. So being in that group made me realize, and I think that was the point actually, where I went, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not a retail blah, 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 blah guy. I'm an entrepreneur. And it gave me the license to shift my entire thinking around that, which is an absolute game changer. And obviously that then follows up with, well, this is how you actually start to think and do and execute. And there's a lot of tactical, practical insights to wrap around that. But that was the big shift.
So good. Let's go back to the old days there. If I was talking to one of your daughters, what would they say about her dad at that point? The pre that event versus the post?
They would say that Dad's not as grumpy as he used to be. Right?
Okay.
And I'm a great dad. I think I'm a great dad. I'm a fun dad and all that. But I have, like most people, I have my grumpy moments, and I can trace those back. And where they might have felt a little bit unduly, well, hang on a minute, what did I do wrong? Why is he grumpy at me? It's like, well, I'm not grumpy at them. I was grumpy at life and the world, and there was just too much going on, and I didn't have the mechanisms to process that. I think that's what they would have said then. Now I know what they say now. They're quite proud of me, and they're quite interested in what I do, and they'll ask questions, which is a pretty big feather in the cap when you get teenage girls stepping out of their day-to-day to actually come and sit with you and go, hey, what are you doing and what's that all about, and please tell me about it. So that to me is a big turnaround, and I'm doing things that interest them.
But there's been plenty of times, certainly in the past, that you wanted to quit.
I think there were probably times where, I don't want to say maybe we should have, the accountants might think that, some of them. Why did you keep going? That wasn't the clever move. But I think that reflects the personality of the guys who started the business and the team that we've attracted. But yeah, the feelings of, this is too hard. It's a combination of being inside a world of people that, everybody's at some point on that journey, and when you're up and you can help people who are not up.
What are some of the things that you've done from the leadership perspective? What's the impact that it's made?
Well, the impact's been massive, and it's been massive because we've been able to take sort of a wider organizational design perspective that you've taught us, which is very simple, very effective, and words like accountability and responsibility, which are very easily said but less easily understood and implemented, become very, very real. So the group that we've got now have been very much a part of helping to drive out and now implement the 180-degree turnaround in the business that we've been going through for the last 18 months or so. One of the things that I've learned, which is very much around, it feels very personal, but you can connect to the businesses around wealth and intergenerational wealth, and coming back and owner's joy and saying, well, what the hell are you doing this for anyway? And obviously that then follows up with, well, and this is how you actually start to think and do and execute. There are some extremely impressive and successful entrepreneurs in those groups, and it's intimidating to start with. And then you realize, hang on a minute, they're just like me and they've got the same challenges as me. And you learn from that, and we all get to help each other with them, but we all learn from them, which adds to the confidence thing.
What's been the benefit either by your product offering and or the actual deliverables to your clients as well, Peter?
We're starting to see that we are becoming far better at actually meeting their real needs and doing that at scale. So we've had to be careful the way we do it. We're at a point now where we're able to show some success by doing things in a different way. There are clients and projects that we might not have otherwise been able to help, that we can now help. So one of the things that we learned through that whole dynamic was, you think you built a business where you can step out and everything's good, but that's actually a lot more subtle and a lot more complex and nuanced than it really is. And so I've actually got myself back inside the business, inside that team, not necessarily because I've put my cape on and I can come in and do everything. In fact, that's really what I'm not doing, but just being able to continually drive the messages around what it is that we're doing, the mission that we're on to turn the business in a different direction and keep everybody focused on that has been one of the elements that I think is tracking us in the right direction.
The fact that you can take that, but then you're delivering it to your team, that's a global team, that's a kudos one to the system, but also to you and the way you're showing up as well, that you can articulate what you've learnt with us, and then you actually can articulate that and give that to your team, then they can run with it. Pete, finish this sentence. I almost didn't become an AG member because
I thought I couldn't. There was big oscillations on excitement and then self-doubt.
And yet you had a 7 to 8 figure business.
Yeah.
So where do you think that was coming from then?
Just the level of control that we didn't have. We got big, so we weren't scaling. We grew and we shrunk and we grew and we shrunk, but we never scaled. And I understand the difference now.
What can you do now that you couldn't do before?
I can see a lot further into the future. I can invest a lot of time doing the critical thinking, doing the checking in, the insights, having the communication to guide all of that. And I can see now how we can play a role in an industry that, a few years ago, the world was looking at our industry saying, is it going to exist?
Who would you recommend AG to and why?
I would recommend AG to entrepreneurs who have gutsed it out to a point where they're in that percentage of, okay, you're still here. So you've proven that you can get from A to B, and not many people get to B. But to go from B to C and actually get there and enjoy the journey, unless you've got some eyes and ears on you that can tell you yes or no in a very honest appraisal, either directly or through the methodologies and the systems that'll give you those answers, being coached and actually taking the coaching to help you get where you need to be. The mission and the DNA of Abundance Global around being, yes, you're a business, but you're a business that is there to help other businesses get to where they need to be, is manifesting in those moments for me, which is like, no, we want you to succeed.
You've gone from a place of maybe not having a lot of control and maybe not as much structure, and now you do. Now you've got a lot more control within a market that's very volatile, and yet the certainty in the position where the business is now is the best it's ever been, maybe ever in the 23 years. you're in pole position to make it not only a heap of cash, but actually change the whole industry at large by some of the critical thinking you've done and the way you've approached it. So I'm going to say massive attaboy for doing that. How does that make you feel, Pete?
I think I'm really proud of the fact that we've got to a point where we're working this out and now we're ready to go. And it's not just another, oh, we're ready to go again. So very confident, very in control, and very grateful to be in a position that we've actually got a chance to go and make a very big difference to our clients, our industry, all the people in the business today and who'll be in the business tomorrow, and then ultimately our families.
Super proud of all the efforts you and the whole team have put in. And I know, we've just got to the starting line, 23 years in. Now the rocket ship has really taken off. So, mate, well done. And congratulations for the massive.
Well, thanks to you and the team too, because obviously we're in that position because of the relationship that we've had with you guys over the last 5 years. So thank you very much.